Hey, what's up, guys? My name is Crash, and today we're going to talk about the new Saints Row reboot. So far, from what I've played, I am about 80% way through the game. I've done a lot of the side activities, I've played through all the main story, and I got a decent amount of knowing and knowledge of the gameplay. The first thing I want to talk about, though, is the gameplay. So far, from what I played and went through, most of the gunplay is kind of iffy, or it kind of feels off. I don't know why, but most of the guns just don't feel right. And with the aim assist, sometimes it works with you, and sometimes it works very heavily against you. And it makes some of the gunfights in the game seem really tedious and really annoying to deal with. And not only that, with the new gunplay, they also added new health bars to the enemies, which makes some of the enemies feel kind of bullet spongy. I played on around, I think, the medium difficulty, so it wasn't that bad. But I could see if you play on a higher difficulty, sometimes there's going to be a problem. Like certain bosses and under bosses, stuff like that. And sometimes you'll put at least 5 to 6 magazines inside of their body, and they'll still be running at you trying to shoot you. Even with the problem with the bullet spongy enemies, I feel like the biggest notable thing, for problem wise, was definitely the gunplay overall. It just felt like most of the time when I was playing, I was more on the usage of either pistols or the AK. Every other gun seems kind of useless this time around. Like SMGs, they have such excessive kick that you have to go up to the enemy, and the problem with them being more bullet spongy is most of the time you're gonna end up getting killed for rushing in. Same with the shotgun. Even the rocket launcher seems kind of like a risk weapon, and with little reward most of the time because the rocket launcher doesn't do enough damage to kill a guy. And then we have the vehicles that come in. This time around, I don't know why, but I just felt like most of the vehicles weren't really interesting to drive nor use, because most of them are kind of just copy and paste from the old Saints Rows. Like they have a VTOL that shoots a laser, but this time around you have to hold it down so it shoots like a short spurt, and that's it. And then they have the missiles that you can shoot in a row. I think that's from the old ones. And then they have the tanks, and all of them are kind of just the same ones, just thrown into this game. So there wasn't really that many unique vehicles this time around. And it all just felt like it was something from the old ones just taken and put in this one, which kind of felt kind of lazy in a way, because I was expecting a lot more new stuff because this is supposed to be a reboot. And with a reboot, you would hope that they would come up with new ideas or new weapons or new vehicles. The second thing I wanted to talk about was the side activities. This time around, the pretty dog shit. We got Chop Shop from the old games, which is still fun when it works. But you're gonna start seeing a trend here. So when you go to the next one, it's a taco truck, and you steal trucks that sell drugs and you take them back. All right, that works. And then you have a toxic waste truck. You take that and take it back. All right, what's next? You got a tow truck. You take a car and you take it back. All right. And then you have a laundromat. You won't believe what you have to do with this one. You take the car and you take it back. It's pretty insane when you think about it, how like they didn't think about how boring these would be if you just keep doing it over and over. Even Planet Saints does this. You just take a truck and you take it back. It just starts getting really tedious at a point and repetitive, and it's just like I want to do something else. Like, can you show me something unique? They do have unique modes. They got Mayhem, which is from the old one, so that you got to give them that. Insurance fraud, which is always a fan favorite, and then they have a karate place where you take random weapons and beat the crap out of people. It's like the one mode that they used to have, Fight Club, or we can call it a little bit like Fuzz in a way, which I wish I this game had Fuzz, but that is sadly gone, or at least I haven't seen it if it is in this. But yeah, most of the modes just kind of come down to you take a vehicle and you take it back. And it just really felt uninspired and boring because it felt like they didn't really care about what the side activities were this time around. They didn't really care about the gameplay that was in the game. They just kind of threw some stuff at the wall and said, hopefully this will stick. And most of it doesn't. And it's really disappointing because we haven't seen a game in the franchise since like 2013, which is terrible because like the whole franchise was done. Then this came out. I guess some notable things that you can actually add on that was somewhat good was discoveries, which discoveries lets you learn about the past of the area you're in. So at least we can feel like we're part of Santo Aliso a little bit more. We get to learn the history if you're into that. It's kind of cool. You get rewarded for doing it. You don't really have to listen to it. You can just like click through them and then go to the next one. But some of them have some like references to the old Saints Rows. Like if you go to one, it talks about Altor from Saints Row 2 and what their effect on this timeline was, which is kind of interesting in a way. And then you got the wingsuit activities. They didn't really do anything with the wingsuit at all. It felt like it was just like a pointless throw-in, and they were just like, okay, we'll keep it in. Like they have a radio tower activity where you just bounce off these radio towers from one to another. Boring. And then you have another one where you land on a building and you blow up radio towers. It's just like, I don't, well, not radio towers, but satellite dishes. But it just felt like most of it was kind of just throwaway content, and they didn't really think about it. So you would hope that most of the stuff that it's like good is at least in the story, right? Well, if you were looking for the story to be the saving grace of this game, I'm sorry to tell you, like the bad news, it is dog shit. There is nothing good about the story at all, and it feels like it's a punch in the face half the time because they were marketing this, or at least the people that were like online, they were marketing this game to be like the second and third together. There is nothing in the second that is anything near what the fuck this is. I don't know what was going on with the team that was working on the story, nor do I know what the people that were working on the gameplay, the side activities, what they were doing the whole time, but it was definitely not working on this game. Because most of the shit in this story is just, I don't even know how to explain it. It was just that bad. I don't know, but we're going to go into spoilers here. So if you don't want to hear any spoilers, I would click off now. Alright, so now let's get into the spoilers. So pretty much the game starts out with you being part of Marshall, which is one of the main antagonists of the game, which is cool. You know, like you get to kind of see into the glimpse of the bad guys. You never really got to see that type of stuff in the fourth, third, second, or first. Like, I guess you could say you could a little bit because it would show you like clips of them when they are just having a conversation with each other. But I mean, like you were never really fully a part of it, except the Marrows group in the second one, which was kind of cool. Like it was cool to see a different perspective, like of you actually being like part of a different gang at the beginning. Same with your other three friends. Well, two. Uh, Eli doesn't really do much at all. I don't know what the fuck they were doing with him. He didn't have a job. He just kind of sat there, and yeah, that was it was the whole point. So we had Kevin. He was part of the Idols, which is kind of cool. The Idols are somewhat interesting. Not really, because they're just, oh, we hate that we are capitalists. I think that was like the whole idea. I didn't really get it. It was just more they like didn't care about society, and like they were anarchists. And then you had Nina. She was part of the Panteros, which Nina, I will say right now, is by far the worst out of the three. I don't know what happened with her. She had the most potential out of all three of them, but somehow she fell on her face the hardest, sadly. So with this part, I'm gonna go over a little bit about each character that's in the game. So you have Kevin. Kevin, his whole role is kind of boring. He's just shirtless. He likes to cook, and I guess he was part of an orphanage at the beginning. That's like the whole thing around him. Like you go to Freckle Bitches to pick up a toy for him because it was supposed to like remind him of when he was young, when he never was able to get one. So that's his kind of whole thing around him. Then you got Eli. He's more just like a serious guy. He's into LARPing, which LARPing does take up a decent amount of missions throughout this. So if you're really not into like the really geeky stuff and all that, I would just say those are like somewhat kind of like side missions. Just skip them. If you don't like stuff that gets like really nerdy and like role play and stuff like that, you aren't gonna like those missions at all. I don't think they were that bad. I think they had a little bit of a different mix. I just feel like this game was should have now been named Saints Row. I don't know what they were thinking with this. Like it just was too geeky and felt like it wasn't fitting what it's supposed to be, which is, gangs. You're supposed to be a gangster, not some dude LARPing out in the desert shooting people with toy guns. But the last main character is Nina, which her story was kind of whatever. Like, she's like really into a car. That's part of what their gang is about. The Panteros are really vehicle oriented. And, like, their car is pretty much their soul, which is like the idea around it. So, at some point in time, you lose her vehicle, and then she says her mother gave it to her before she passed from cancer, if I am correct. And it was kind of like a somewhat sad. I didn't really like. I didn't feel with what she was trying to convey, which it sounds kind of morbid in a way, or like, well, why didn't you? But at the same time, the way they did it just was kind of whatever. Like, you didn't know anything about her backstory before that, so there was like nothing to be thrown in there. It just felt like it was just like a hey, we need to make this a little bit more interesting than she just lost her car. So we're gonna say her mom gave her this before she died, and that's what it felt like. So the next guy would be Nawali, but he's not really part of the gang. He's more like just a side piece to this like gang. Like, he comes around and then he leaves type person. He's somewhat interesting. There's not really much to him. Like, he's like a badass. He's like a Gat, but not as interesting type of Gat. He doesn't really play too much of a role. He's just very chaotic, and he's a murderer that likes to murder. So he has like an interesting like psychotic thing to him, at least, and it makes him more intriguing. And he plays a bigger role near the end of the game. But let's get back to the story. Most of the story is kind of like you don't really care about what's going on. There's only one really big suspenseful part, and it's when Kevin gets kidnapped. And that was kind of interesting because it was like, oh shit, this guy might die. But let's be real, he probably isn't. So you pretty much take this guy hostage and you like spin him around and like hit stuff when he's in a porta potty until he gives you information about where Kevin is. So you go to a sign, you save him from explosives on the sign, and then you guys wingsuit down and just kill everyone. There wasn't really much other to that, except that's pretty much what happened. I wish they would have did it differently, like, oh, Kevin got kidnapped, and it became like a 2 to 3 mission type of thing, where you get to show him get tortured and stuff while you're trying to frantically find your friend that just got kidnapped, but no. Instead, you just sit there and you go, okay, I'm going to take his phone and somehow we're going to know exactly where he is. Which is what happens because they call you and they're like, oh yeah, by the way, we have your friend. And it's like, are you kidding me? Why would they tell you where exactly he is and to give you enough time to go get him back. Like, that doesn't even make any sense at all. And then I guess we'll get into like near the end stuff. So you break Nuwali out, and then after you break Nuwali out of prison, you guys do a bank heist. Well, not a bank, train heist together. And after the train heist, you guys like have like a closer bond because you guys did like a camping trip type thing. You take a RV and you drive around doing random stuff while people just shoot at you. It was really stupid. But then near the end, like after you do that, you defeat Atticus, like Marshall. You defeat Idols, and then you defeat Panteros. And at that point, when you're at like the ending, there's supposed to be like a plot twist of the century type deal where Nuwali betrays you, which is kind of obvious he was going to. He's a gang member. He's actually what a gang member is supposed to be. Like, he actually plays the actual role. Like, your character doesn't. You're just a psychopath that shoots people, and you even admit that throughout the story. It's the same thing with 3. That's the reason why I wasn't a huge fan of the third, is because your character was kind of just made to just be a killer, and there's nothing else to him. But he stabs you a couple times. You go into this dream realm, weirdly enough. But before you like pass out and go to this dream realm, he's like, "I want your best friends. They're my best friends now." And I was like, "What the fuck? What? Why? Like, why did you why did you stab me to take my friends to make them your friends? Like, what the fuck is going on?" It made no sense at all. And it's just like, oh, he's a psychopath. You don't know what he's gonna do next. And it's just like, I don't think any psychopath, he was, it just doesn't make any sense. Why was that his conclusion? I'm gonna take them and be my friends. So he goes like through this dream state. They blame you for stuff. Like, you feel like you did some bad things to your friends. Kevin had no like real thing there. He's just like, oh, you're not a good friend. That was literally his thing. That's the only bad thing you quote unquote did to him. The only one that actually had like a standing point there was Eli, when he's like, I got shot and you could have been there to help me. But aside from that, the other two didn't have anything, because like Nina's whole thing was, you didn't kill the bad guy. Because you didn't end up killing Sergio, the leader of Panteros. Nuwali did. And that was like the whole thing about it. And it was just like, what? You're really just gonna do that? Like, that's what you wanted to do with a dream thing? But he buries you when you're in your dream. You get out of the like the grave that he dug you, and then you go and find your friends. You pretty much shoot through a whole bunch of stuff. You go back to the original place. You shoot through all those guys. You shoot through the guys that are defending the building, where they're reenacting a day that you guys have in like the second or third mission over and over again until they get it right. And then you show up and you're like the savior of the day, and you're like, oh, our savior's here, he's gonna save us all. And then you guys beat him up, you shoot him in the face, and that's it. There were I don't know what the fuck was going on, why this whole Nuwali thing came up, and why he became like this psycho that wanted best friends, but it just didn't work at all. So for my conclusion for this video, is it worth it? No. I would say no. For right now, this game is definitely not in a good state. I'd even go over a lot of the bugs that are in the game, because almost every video that's out has already talked about all the major issues in the game. It is just not worth it at this point in time. I would say wait a couple months and wait for it to be like $30 to $20 before purchasing, because this game is definitely not a $60 game. It's not running right. It doesn't have a good story. It doesn't have good gameplay, and it doesn't have good side activities. If those are the things that really pique your interest, then wait before you buy. And if you can't wait that long, then you can go ahead and purchase it. I can't stop you from doing that. But that's going to be all for this video. And if you liked it, please think of liking or subbing to the channel. That would be much appreciated. And if you don't like the video, leave a dislike and leave a comment on how I can better this channel. And if you guys have any suggestions on different videos, like different games I can review or different topics I can talk about, just leave a comment on that too. And I'll see you guys next time.